afternoon. Olivia, Jessie, Flower, and Grape, Baldwin.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, hello. Hello. What's all this then?
How you guys doing? Good? Yay! Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. And moms of fur babies, which is what?
Mother, stand up. Come on, if you're a mother, stand
All
up.
right, if you're a mother, stand up. Let's give a round of applause for the mothers here this afternoon.
If you've occasionally been called a mother, stand up.
I've been called the other part of mother.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
And there's children in the room, so I can't say that part, so yeah. So I want to thank our three panelists this afternoon. We're going to talk for about 30 to 45 minutes. Voice actors Greg Baldwin, Jessie Flower, and Olivia Hack. And I just want to first welcome you guys to Load Icon. And I'm going to give the mic to you three. I'm going to yell my questions because they don't really want to listen to me. They want to listen to you. So what I heard while you guys were signing autographs over in the pavilion was that you're very rambunctious. You're very, you have certain voices you guys like to do. So I'm going to just turn it over to Greg, and you can pass it down and fire off some voices. I hear there was also some karaoke going on at some point. So
Karaoke.
there you go.
Yeah, karaoke, you have to bring back the story of my deepest dishonor. I used to do New York, New York when I was a kid, and I could do it again, but you know what?
Do you guys want to hear New York, New York?
Oh, a cappella, huh?
Well, you gotta stand up.
Yes, okay.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.
I don't know the words. This is your song. I sing country music at karaoke.
These youngsters today and their rock and roll music.
You know, we were at a con in New Braunfels, Texas, and he was like, Michaela, you can't let me do karaoke this weekend. I did it last time, and my wife said I could never do it again. And I was like, I think you're fine. I think you are better than you think. And he was saying it perfectly, and we were all swaying in a kick line. It was incredible.
I think I might have had a little less to drink when I did it,
that makes sense. That makes
might have
sense.
been.
Yeah, the more the wine, the less the on key. Well, yes.
I think we all have to do a little karaoke.
Oh, gosh.
Your choice.
Well,
Your country song.
oh dear.
You mentioned country.
I did. Well, who listens to country music here? Anybody? Yeah, I was about to say, it's normally like 5 people. So my go-to, it's just because it's fun and I feel like nobody else, it's a rare occasion, and so I usually sing it. It's called Gunpowder and Lead by Miranda Lambert. It's very intense, yeah. Oh gosh, it's been so long. Hold on, I have to get there. He's ready to go. You knew this was going to be on. He came prepared.
Ain't I a stinker?
Oh my gosh. You don't actually have to do this.
No, but I do now.
Oh,
No,
there's a
we've
job.
committed. I have to get there. The verse, yeah, I'll start with the verse because I can't think of the chorus. County Road 233 under my feet. Nothing on this wide road but a little old me. I got 2 miles till he breaks bail. And if I'm right, we're headed straight for hell. Oh, here's the chorus. I'm going home, gonna load my shotgun, wait by the door and light a cigarette. He wants to buy, well, now he's got one. He ain't seen me crazy yet. Yeah, there you go.
Right, so I'm not going to follow that and put you guys through that because I cannot sing, and when I do sing karaoke, I sing Billy Joel because you can talk through it. But I'm Olivia Hack. I play Ty Lee, and I also play, oh my god, is that a My Melody pillow back there? I love My Melody, sorry. Distracted, ADD. Yeah, so I play Ty Lee, I play Katuni in Clone Wars, I play Jose in Persona 5, other stuff, I don't know, Care Bears, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, so that's that.
Yeah, I realized we totally didn't say our names or do
Nobody
any of that.
got karaoke.
Just saying.
So I'm Jessie Flower, aka Michaela Jill Murphy. Michaela Jill Murphy is my birth name. When I was 6, I wanted to be cooler, so I gave myself a fake name. And now that name is in so many credits, so that's why there's 2 names happening if you are on my Instagram or see a discrepancy. But I voiced Toph in Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Last Airbender, along with young Franny Meet the Robinsons, which just had its 15-year little reunion anniversary, and Chaka in Kronk's New Groove and The Emperor's New School, Nase in Platinum End, that's a recent dub that I've done. Yeah, who are you?
I'm Greg Baldwin. I'm Uncle Iroh in Avatar. Aku and Samurai Jack. I have had the great privilege of being a voice double for the late great Mako Aramatsu. I also voiced several characters in Clone Wars, my favorite being Jedi Master Terra Sinupe, because he's a Jedi Master. Gyozen in Ghost of Tsushima, Frank Fontaine in BioShock. Some cool stuff, you know, lots of cool stuff. I think we've been very fortunate to have been able to live. You know, I was telling Michaela, the cool thing about these cons is it's so nice that we get to go away periodically and we get to run away and join the circus, you know? But then we get to go home and have a normal life again, so it's kind of awesome, you know? Yeah.
So talk a little bit. I know, Greg, you have a theater background. I know, Jessie, you have a graduate degree from Yale in theater and film studies. And then, Olivia, you were a child actor. I don't know if you did any theater as well.
When I was younger.
Okay. So talk about how the theater has helped your career, what you learned from being live on stage, and what you use now from that.
The theater hasn't helped my career at all. I mean, just to be honest, I did a couple plays in LA when I was young, you know, maybe like 7 or 8. No, I mean, all my stuff. I started when I was about 2 or 3 years old, started in commercials as you do when you're a kid, and then you progress to TV, did a couple movies. I did Hey Arnold, that cartoon show, and I was, I know, the best. I started doing that when I was 11 or 12. But yeah, as far as theater, I don't know. I mean,
But it was your start, though. I mean, obviously, you know, also being a commercial actor as well. Did you take anything from those early parts of theater?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, you know, like my mother was a theater actress, so I think, so she would be very like mortified if she was here and hearing this, because she, I think, had a fantasy that I was going to live in New York and do theater in New York, and took me to New York when I was a teenager, and I was like, I'm good, I'm from LA, like, I can't see the sky, the buildings are too high. But yeah, no, so theater's lovely and wonderful. I just personally, that wasn't really, even though I did some of that when I was young, that was not like my core, I don't see that as my core foundation, you know, I don't know.
It's funny, because I think your Hey Arnold was then my Avatar, because we were both 12. That was our, so funny. I did start in theater, because it's a good trial, especially if you're a kid, for your mom or dad, whatever, to put you in a show somewhere and just be like, here, figure out, do you like this? So I started off in Oliver and Annie, and I was the happiest orphan in Oliver that they had ever seen. I was like, this is great! But yeah, I started because I was... Being in Los Angeles, one of my friends in school was like in a commercial, and I was like, that looks cool, I want to be in a commercial. And my mom's like, sure you do, here, let's put you in a musical. And afterwards, she was like, oh, you like really like this. So, now, we started voice lessons pretty early on because I was very much into the singing. So yeah, that started me off, and then I started commercials. Once again, like Olivia said, often when you're a kid. And I definitely think a lot of my presence in the room, audition skills, which are still wavery. Auditioning is really not my strong suit, which is funny because that is what you do most of the time. But theater helped me get through a lot of those awkward moments in the room, improv, that sort of thing. Yeah, all very helpful. So, and stage presence. And projecting to the back of the room.
So you don't have to use the mic.
Yeah. So that's been very helpful for especially voice acting and vocal support and that whole thing. What about you, Greg?
I still like to go back and do theater every 5 years or so. I haven't in more because there was this little thing that sort of interrupted theater, sort of, everywhere. So, but I would love to go back and do it again. I like the immediacy of theater, how you can't fix it in post, and it really is a team sport. I miss the company of actors, and when you're in a play with actors, it is sort of like a team, and you all are pursuing the same goal. I think people often say, well, how do you become a voice actor? And the best answer to give them is act, be an actor. And the best place to start acting, I think, is probably local community theater, taking classes. I think that is a really good start. And for me, the theater, I absolutely adore the theater. I've loved musicals since I was a kid. I still do, and my love of musicals there's a direct correlation to me sitting here today, had I not loved musicals. What story is this? You've never, listen up, you've never heard this story before. I will. It was 1970, and I was 10 years old. My parents took my brother and I to see a film called Scrooge. It was a musical starring Albert Finney. It's a Christmas Carol. I had never seen anything like, I don't know, for a 10-year-old boy, I was just so moved by this experience that you could literally delineate my life from before and after. The moment I saw that film, there was no question as to what I wanted to do with my life. I want to be an actor. I want to make other people feel the way this movie just made me feel, which led to my love of musicals. And my parents would, every year for Christmas and my birthday, would give me record albums from whatever the popular musicals were on Broadway at the time. And in 1977, for my 17th birthday, they gave me a record album to a musical called Pacific Overtures. It was written by Stephen Sondheim, and it starred an actor named Mako Iromatsu, who opens the musical. And the first time I ever heard this man's voice, I went, holy moly, that is a voice. Bottom line is I love this musical so much, I sang along with the record every day. I could sing the entire score for you now. I will not, unless you really want to hear it and you got some time, And flash forward to 2006, Mako passes away, and unbeknownst to me, I have been working on a Mako impression for 30 years. And so I love it just because it shows how incredibly random life is, because a seemingly innocuous gift ended up being one of the most important, if not the most important gift I've ever been given. I've since had it framed. Because if my parents had given me another record album, there could very well be someone else up here right now talking about playing Iroh. So, as Iroh says, destiny is a funny thing. You never know how things are going to work out. I can tell you were enraptured by that story. As if you've never heard it before. I know.
I will listen to it every day.
So does my wife. She doesn't care for it.
Well, part of the reason we're here is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Originally was on Nickelodeon in the mid-2000s. Are you guys surprised by how, now that, part of it is on Netflix, that it's kind of revived itself 10, 15 years later?
Oh, 100%. I think, and I think both of you can agree, as with some of our other castmates, when you're working, you're not like, this is gonna be a big one. You're just working, and you're like, oh, do the people I record with, are they nice? Are the directors, easy to work with? Is this enjoyable? So it was a very positive, a very cool story, and we were all like, yeah, this is awesome. We're so glad we get to work on this. All right, it's wrapped. On to the next job. We just had no idea, and so it was definitely kind of crazy, but almost, it wasn't surprising per se, because I knew that people loved this show, but I feel like there wasn't an awareness of all the different groups of people everywhere that love this show. And Netflix kind of was like a reminder to all these different people all across the world that, like, yeah, we all love this show. And especially with, social media, it was not the same in 2007, 2008. We were like the dawn of Facebook back then, I think. Yeah. So now it's just so different, and now everybody has a place to talk about it and be like, yeah, I love this show. Subreddits and now whole Instagram pages. I mean, there's just places for everybody to come love the show together, which is really cool. So definitely wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't surprised, because I knew people loved it, and it just kind of, brought it to light. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah. I was shocked, only because I didn't really know people even cared about Avatar. I did my first con 12 years ago with Dante Bosco, who voices Zuko, and we were in Australia. And I guess I just thought they flew me out to Australia because I was fabulous. I didn't know, and I've done other stuff, right? So I was like, oh, we're going to Comic-Con, okay. And everything I was signing was Avatar stuff. And I said to Dante, I was like, is this a thing? And I'd never seen Avatar. And he's like, yeah, Olivia, people love this show. And I was like, oh, okay. And also, too, to speak on what Michaela said, before social media, and remember, too, there's only 3 seasons of Avatar, right? And technically, unless a show goes for 5 seasons, which is then when it can be syndicated, it's a flop. Right? Now, Mark and Brian, who created the show, they only wanted to do 3 seasons, and that's why there are 3 seasons and not like it got canceled. But yeah, so I kind of did it, and then I just forgot about it. And then, I don't even know if Avatar on Netflix would have even been as popular, but something good came out of COVID, which is everybody was stuck in a room and was like, what can I watch? And then they came across Avatar.
Yeah, the success of Avatar sort of reminds me of something that I saw. I've seen it happen. In the 60s, there was a very popular show on television when I was a kid. And I think it ran like 2 or 3 seasons, and then I think it might have been canceled. It was critically acclaimed, fans liked it, but it was canceled, moved on. About 10 years later, the actors from this series started appearing at conventions such as this, and it just started being this groundswell. And the show was Star Trek. And I think in some ways, what we're seeing happen with Avatar is not altogether different from what we saw happen in Star Trek, to which I say, sweet.
Well, I also think, as I start speaking about this, I also think it's cool when you recognize that a show can be multi-generational. So when, I was 12 at the time, so if somebody who was 12, 15 in high school, whatever, and now they have kids, now they have a family, and they're like, oh wait, I can watch it with my kids, and then their kids like it, and they're like, let me just show this to my mom, and then your mom can watch it. And it's such a good family show that isn't, dumbed down in any way. It's just, it presents topics very delicately, but is honest with you. And I think that's why it's like, oh wait, we can keep watching this, we can keep learning something, we can show it to the 4-year-old, we can show it to the 60-year-old, and it just, yeah, it's amazing, it's crazy.
Were you impressed by the writing there? Because it's on Nickelodeon, which is a kids station, and it's supposed to be kids subjects, but they're talking about war, they're talking about imperialism, they're talking about some big name subjects. So
I think that's one of the reasons why the show is still so impactful, because from episode 1 they're dealing with genocide, and I think one of the Iroh scenes that is most impactful to people is they remember the leaves from the vine scene. And I think one of the reasons, again, that scene is so impactful is because they weren't afraid to back off of very important, real topics. And the thing about that scene is you look at it ostensibly, that scene is not about death. Cartoons have been doing death since Bambi's mother got killed. That's not a new thing. That scene is about grief. And grief is a much more complicated emotion. And I do think that that's one of the reasons why even now this show impacted people and why it's still here.
I also think when people ask, oh, was it hard getting into character? How did you get ready to, record your session? Mike and Brian did all that work for us. They wrote such incredible characters with incredible arcs, with real failures and successes and strengths, weaknesses, et cetera, et cetera. So it was very easy for us to just kind of step into it. We just brought kind of our personality and then colored it, but they did all the structure. People ask if there's improv lines. No, aside from like fight sequences and reaction noises, and, obviously, those were a little improv. But when it comes to the actual words, every single one of them was thought out very carefully. So yeah, very impressed by the writing. Everything was thought of. If something is missing or if something is there, it was definitely intentional, and I think that bleeds through, and that's why they were so firm about this is 3 seasons. This is the story. We're not going to muck it up and give you a 4th season that's then not as exciting, and then missed things, and then people are upset. No, they knew what they wanted. So I'm constantly impressed by just their whole process. They're amazing.
And before we open up to questions from the audience, I want to go into researching roles. And I think, Olivia, you could probably talk about this. Obviously, you were Cindy Brady at one point, in the movie theaters. Talk about researching roles as an actor, and what do you look for? How is your process?
My process. It depends, right? Depends on the thing. So for that, So for Cindy Brady, Paramount sent us, like, I'm dating myself, stacks and stacks of VHS tapes, right? And so we watched them all, you know, and there were some Brady Bunch books we read, and you know, you get really immersed in that world, you know. And for her, it was mostly just, you know, about the lisp and all that stuff. And then, but what was cool was, because we had been so immersed in that, to walk on set for the first time, and they had, you know, I mean, the house was perfect. So, you know, it's almost kind of like an acid trip, because you're like, God, now I'm here, you know? But everything else is everything else. I mean, as far as animation goes, unless it's a specific voice match, you know, which that is just, I always say, you know, you can teach voice acting, whatever, but you can't teach an ear. You either have an ear or you don't. I'm lucky I do, so I'm good at accents, I'm good at voice matching, all that sort of thing. But if it's an original character, and it's not a show that's already on, it's helpful to watch a show, right, because you can understand the tone. But other than that, I mean, I don't know, like for Ty Lee, I never read the scripts, because I came in season 2, and I was like, Earth, Kingdom, Fire, Nation, like none of this is making sense. I'm just gonna read my lines, whatever. And oh, she's pink, so she's gonna sound like this, because she's really happy, and she looks pink. I don't know. So yeah, I'm a terrible actor for that stuff, because I just kind of, it's so old hat to me that I just kind of like bullshit my way through most of my stuff.
But that is part of it too, because I feel like if you overthink too much, then it's not authentic. So I do a similar thing. If there's a color, if there's an outfit, if there's a hairstyle, I'm like, oh, she's gonna sound like this. Like, I don't know. Like I just try to throw something that matches the vibe. I feel like it's similar across the board. So I don't know. You though, what did you have to do for? Did you have to do any pre-prep really, or did you just come in with like, oh, I know what this sounds like, and they're like, cool, you're good, sign off. Like, did you with Mako?
With Mako, there were a bunch of auditions for that. I think there were like 4 in all. And the first one was just a regular. My agent sent me the audition. I recorded it in my office. I was working at Disney at the time, sent it back. And then the day where I got the call back from my agent that said, you're Nick's #1 pick and they want to meet you in person, was about an hour after Disney had laid me off. So that was, you know, I'll always remember it. But yeah, that was a very particular sort of role, which has always been, for me, the tightrope that I walk, because not only do I need to honor this iconic character, but I have to honor the iconic actor who voiced the iconic character. So not only do I have the writer's words to think about, but I have Mako Arumatsu himself, you know, talking to me. So no, he doesn't really talk to me. Sometimes he does, but you know, it depends. He talks to me when I'm tweeting. Actually, that's Iroh that talks to me when I'm tweeting. I'll hear Iroh over here on one shoulder, you know, going, Greg, do you really want to put that out into the universe? And Aku's over here going, don't be a coward, hit Sandy, you fool! So, you know, but yeah, that was, if it's just a regular, not where I'm being asked to specifically voice match something. And my friend Jeff Bennett gave me this tip a long time ago. I went to school with Jeff, and believe me, you've heard Jeff's voice in a lot of things. He was Johnny Bravo. This guy's like a real A-list voice actor. And he said, sometimes it's best just to start off with an impression of someone. And that you can find your own role, but that's a good starting place. And for myself, I played a role in the Clone Wars called Terra Sanube. And Terra Sanube is a very old Jedi, and he sounds like this. But if you go back and you watch the first 2 Harry Potter movies, and listen to Richard Harris as Dumbledore, you'll realize what I'm actually doing. Little tip there, little tip. You only heard it here. Cone of silence.
We'll open up to the audience for about 10 minutes of questions. Yeah, the one in the green right here.
Thank you. So I have a question about your elements. So if you didn't get that element, which element would you choose?
Well, in all honesty, I'm actually a mix between fire and earth. So I'm kind of lava. So I know that's a niche bending, style, but I technically am a lava bender. So I think I'm a mix of both. Yeah.
I feel like I'm a water bender because I'm real go with the flow. You know what I mean? Just kind of take it, whatever. Sorry. So go with the flow. No, you know, because in life you can either swim towards things or you can just float. And I just float.
And I don't even get in the water. I'm like, let's sprint there.
I would probably be an airbender. Air, you know, my head has always been sort of up in the clouds. I tend to focus more on and think about spiritual matters and things like that. I think probably, you know, probably an airbender. And maybe there's just a lot of air in my head. I don't know, but that's probably what I would choose for myself. That, you know, or an elbow bender, but that's another matter altogether.
Great question. Yeah, in the front. Yeah.
Hello. First of all, it's an honor to meet you guys. I'm sure you get this a lot, but I wanted to say thank you for bringing such great representation. Oh, my glasses are gone. I'd like to say thank you for bringing such great representation to the screen. As a very spiritual person, especially Heidi and Iroh really spoke to me. Every single personality quiz I take where it like tells you which character you like, Iroh's at the top. And thank you specifically to Jessie Flower for the amazing representation that Toph brings. I learned that I was disabled at about the same time as I started watching Avatar. I have knee problems pretty often, and actually, my brother got me one of your Airbender shirts for Christmas a couple years ago. He signed a picture and it said, "Keep your knees high," like right after I learned about knee problems. But it's so great seeing disabled characters on the screen and seeing how they get over that, seeing how they, not necessarily get over it, but like how they work with it, how they overcome it. So thank you guys so much for the amazing representation that you've given these great characters for people to relate to see themselves in. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Great cosplay.
Yes, we love it. That's great. I mean, it was just to respond. She was just saying thank you for, you know, kind of bringing these characters to life the way that we did on screen. And I just wanted to comment actually, because I do get sometimes asked about, you know, voicing a blind character, disabled character. Back to Mike and Brian. I will return and sing their praises till the day I die. They didn't write a disabled character. They wrote a 12-year-old girl who wants to be her own woman and not live in the world that she was born into and be seen for her strengths and not her weaknesses. So I think one of the best things that they did is they're like, oh, what did you have to do to get into character? And I'm like, be a 12-year-old girl. You're not different. You don't like do something weird. You're just like everybody else. You just happen to have something else in your back pocket. You have a little magic. You got a little extra magic going on, you know? So I also think that it's great that that is the reason she is the greatest earthbender in the world, right? Like without that, she wouldn't be. So it's her superpower, actually. So I think that's just a great thing that I'm honored I got to voice, because I mean, it's unparalleled and we don't see that a lot, for sure. So yeah, anyway, it was an honor to voice her.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. I hope your knees are okay, / doing better. You know, it could be taken as good or bad that I actually picked that quote to send to you. Good, I'm glad.
Other questions out there? Right back there, right there.
What's the most challenging aspect of being a voice actor / actress?
For me, it's doing anime. Because when you do anime, so when you do traditional animation, they animate to your voice, right? Like we're acting and then they animate to us. When you're doing anime, you're dubbing Japanese, right, typically. And so you've got to fit in stuff that's not quite, right, like mouth flaps. And so sometimes you get what they call junk flaps, which you say the line the way they've written it, and then there's some extra stuff, and everybody goes, okay, now we got to write some other stuff real quick and figure out, you know, and then you've got to fill it in the time code and whatever. And then also, you're not acting with another actor. So my anime performances are my least favorite because I see them back and I go, if I had known the line before was going to be delivered that way, I wouldn't have said it this way. And sometimes you have to say things really fast to fit it in there, or you have to stretch things out really long, right? So it's anime for me. I mean, I like doing it, I love doing it, but that's the most challenging where I'm like, ooh, because I got to use my brain. You know, it's more technical. It's not just like I'm acting from my gut. I have to be like more technical about it.
feel you on that with the anime. Also, if you see, I can't tell, I always feel like it's very obvious when I'm shivering. I get cold so easily, so if I'm like vibrating, it's just because of the breeze, because I am a wimp. For me, the hardest thing is actually, I mentioned this already, auditioning. The first...
Oh, what a gentleman.
Sorry, I was raised in the South, I'm sorry.
I swear,
I think you'll
yeah, this is good. I'm just gonna live in here now.
Looks better on you
Like
than
Toph
on me.
and Cole, I'm just gonna live in a hole. Okay, auditioning is really rough for me. The first impression, it's getting better. As I get older, it gets less and less. But walking into a room of people submitting something, you don't know if they're gonna like you. As soon as I get a call back, I'm like, okay, I know they like me a little, and then I'm totally fine. So the first round, I also second guess myself, and I have like 14 different ways I would do something with everything in my life. So I'm like, okay, usually my first instinct is the best, but is it? Maybe I should do this instead. And so it's just like a conflicted thing for me. So auditioning is the hardest part, honestly, which maybe is a cop-out because it's not actually part of the work, but
No, it is part.
but it is, and it's, you know, arguably the most important part, and I'm still working on it. So, yeah, it's a time.
For me, the biggest challenge is video games. You know, and you would think that video games would be easy, but video games can be hard. Because there are so many different variations, and a lot of it is just screaming. I mean, literally, for example, okay, you'll say, okay, the director say, okay, I want 3 takes of you being hit in the jaw, but it doesn't really hurt all that much. You know, but it'll progress all the way up from that, okay, I want 3 takes of you being burned alive. And so you do that all day long, and by the end of the day, you get that is the only session that I've found sometimes I will actually be hoarse coming out of, you know. Video games are trickier than you would think. And video games generally, I find, they book in 3-hour sessions. Video games will generally take the whole time, whereas an episodic TV show, generally we're out of there in an hour if we're doing our job. Yeah, so, which is also why I like voice acting, because you know what? On-camera acting, you gotta get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you got 16-hour day, yeah, you have to memorize lines. No, and this is, trust me, it's a much better job.
Got time for about 2 more questions. Right there in the front.
Okay, so first of all, I love all of you guys. My daughter is a huge Ty Lee fan. She's too shy to say it, but
That's one for
you
you.
are her favorite. Toph, you are John's favorite. He
That's one for you.
watches her kicking the boulder's butt over and over and over and over again. And I am a proud member of Iroh's Army on Facebook.
Got the whole squad here.
151,000 followers on Facebook.
Oh, wow, 51,000?
Yep.
Wow, that's very impressive.
So you have a lot of experience with devoted fans. My question to you is, what is the funniest, most random thing a fan has done or asked you?
I'll do it. Well, only because this happened like 2 weeks ago, right? And like, I mean, it gets real random, but 2 weeks ago a guy came up to me and he came up to the side of my table. He's a real cute guy, younger guy, and he's like, hey. And I'm like, hey. And he's like, can I ask you something? I'm like, sure. He's like, you have beautiful legs. And I was like, thank you. And he said, but you have great feet. And I said, okay. And he said, how much to take a picture of your feet? And I said, he goes, would you do that? And I said, sure, I don't care. And I go, well, I'm wearing pantyhose. And he said, even better. And I said, okay. And he goes, how much? I go, same as a selfie. I don't know, it's my feet, whatever. I know. And he goes, I'll be right back. That guy never came back. I was so offended.
The different minds of the world. Hey, what's up, Twinkle Toes? Come on, come join us.
Will Smith is up here on the stage. You better watch out, you guys.
Honestly, see, this is what Aang needed to do. This is energy. This is what I was looking for. Yeah, we gotta go. We got our hype man back. Hey, don't apologize. Live your life.
No, let's give a round of applause.
Wonderful performance. This was about a couple months ago when we were in No, where were we? I don't remember. Actual cabbage. We had to sign an actual cabbage. Yes. Yeah. And it was very difficult because the leaves were kind of wet, so like the markers were kind of half working, and it was like falling apart because the leaves were. It was a time. And I was like, this is going to be awful to look at in about 3 days. Yeah. But it was fun in the moment, and there were like 4 of us trying to sign it. It was chaos. But that was definitely a highlight. The actual head of cabbage. Yeah.
I think, for me, we were in Texas. We were in New Braunfels. And they had asked me in the panel, because I get this a lot, what's your favorite tea? And I always say, I hate to, burst your bubble, but I don't drink a lot of tea. I was raised in Texas. My parents were Texans. So I grew up drinking sweet tea. I like sweet tea. And now and again, I'm not opposed to a Long Island tea. And so I did the panel, and I'm back at my table, and these lovely people come with this bucket of iced sweet tea. A bucket, but no straw. So literally, there's pictures of me holding this bucket, and it was delicious tea too. It was good. It was good. Yeah, that was one of the coolest things. I kept the bucket. I did clean it out though,
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, right up here, and then we're out of time. Go ahead.
What was your favorite time in the storyline of Avatar: The Last Airbender?
While recording or just in the storyline?
Storyline.
Okay.
It could be either Avatar or
I mean, I think we might be a little biased, but I do like the original series better than Korra. I did watch, I watched Korra. I tried to view it as a separate entity from the original show, and I liked it. But I'm OG Avatar fan. Of course, I'm a little biased, but I love the episodes, The Library and Tales of Ba Sing Se, because those are 2 moments when you see Toph being softer. She fails and she can't do Appa and save everyone. I think she chose the right thing to do, but Aang might beg to differ. But we see her in a moment of weakness, and then when she is having her kind of more stereotypically girly day, and she's like, I kind of want people to like me. I don't even really know what I look like, but I want to be liked and like attractive and, kind of deal with that messy, conflicted feeling. So those are my 2 favorite little Toph moments.
My favorite part of the Avatar storyline is really like those last 3 episodes where it's just kicking into high gear. Payoff. I like some payoff. And I love it. What's the episode where they're all like kids? Do you know the one? They're all like, yeah. I like that one because Azula's so bad.
Help us out. When they're with the turtles.
Yeah, where they're like the little kids. You know what I mean? And it's like
Trollopi or something like that.
I don't know. Like you see.
No, not Zuko.
You know the one I'm talking about, right? But like Azula's, she's so bad, and like you see that like she was bad. She was born bad. She's just a bad seed. And I like villains, so I'm like, oh yeah, she's just evil to the core.
Even though you didn't know you were a villain.
I didn't know I was a villain.
When you started.
Literally, I'm at a con and someone's like, what does it feel like to be a villain? And I'm like, I'm a villain? And then I watched the show and I was riding around on some giant lizard. I had no idea.
I agree with Michaela. I'm a little biased about Avatar, but I think it's not, because people compare Avatar to Korra, and I don't think it's necessarily a fair comparison. Because it's like comparing Better Call Saul to Breaking Bad. You know what? They're very, very different shows. They just happen to share the same universe. I thought Korra was interesting. I thought it was interesting that they're living in a world where they have this bending, this basically a world of magic. But magic is also living with technology. To me, that was what I thought was one of the interesting. But as far as my favorite episodes, Tales from Ba Sing Se, and I think it's the next to last episode where Zuko comes into the tent. I think it's Sozin's Comet Part 1, I do believe. That gets me every time. I knew it was a beautiful scene when I recorded it, but when it came back animated and you see the tears coming out of their eyes while they're hugging, it's like, wow, this show is something special, truly.
So some program notes. Austin St. John, the first Power Ranger, will be here. Next panel discussion. These 3 individuals will still be signing autographs, taking pictures.